Hey guys, this is Glorious Fruit, back at it in another review of The Last of Us Episode 3. So it starts off with Ellie and Joel 10 to 11 miles away after Tess in the last episode, towards the end, she sacrificed herself from the infected. Ellie tells Joel that, hey, this is on you guys. You guys chose to take me to point B, meeting spot for the Fireflies. That she had nothing to do with her Tess's death. Basically, you can't blame me for this. This is not on me. This is on you guys. And then, Joel accepts that. What makes this interesting in the game, it's different because after they leave, after Fedra takes out Tess, and you play the gameplay taking out Fedra and escape. Ellie feels guilty. She wants to apologize to Joel about Tess. Joel is like, "Hey, you keep things to yourself and I'll keep things to myself. Let's forget about this and let's move on." And then from that point on, they move on to meet up with Bill because Bill owes Joel some favors. And the show, they move on to going to Bill as well. But the only difference is it's not like you owe me some favors. It's basically there's this friendship relationship kind of thing they build, and I'll get to that in a bit. But the interesting part is when they're walking towards Bill's town, they talk about how the whole thing about the infected, how it all started. Ellie only got like the light version from Fedra, the military, or basically military school, or like monkeys did it. But then Joel said that basically he pretty much said whatever information he could get a hold of. It started off with flour, and a lot of people consumed it. If they consume enough of it, they will return. And then Ellie's like, okay, but then how did this all actually started? Because it started off with a person that was already infected. So one bit, basically in episode 2 in the intro, the whole situation, 30 hours, and the 30-hour mark where all the infected and shot them down and stuff like that. Basically, Joel's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't really tell you. And so there's that whole point. And I think that's all we're going to get yet from that point on. I don't think we're going to get any more backstory of how it started. Maybe we'll get more for other people like Tommy, like how they separated, and maybe for sure Ellie. We're going to get a backstory for Ellie. But for like any more backstories for the infected, I think that's about it, and that's the done deal. I was kind of hoping they'll show a little bit more like what happened during Jakarta, like how it like how they failed to continue infected. But the whole point of The Last of Us is not all about the infected, the runners, all that stuffs. It's about basically this whole survival. Well, I mean, it is about the infected, but it's like this father who lost his daughter in the beginning of the pandemic, and he's been trying to survive, and then he's now taking care of this girl that resembles around the age of when he lost his daughter, and now they're going through this journey where he's basically like rediscovering things about himself, basically, in that way, in form. At least what I took from the game, and what's somewhat happening in the show. And so after that whole thing, they keep going forward. Joel wants to take to a different direction. Ellie wanted to keep going straight because Joel didn't want her to see the reality things of what happened during the beginning of this whole ordeal of the infected. And she found out all the skulls, clothing, suitcases. And then Joel told her that in the very beginning, when people were being evacuated to quarantine zones, only a limited amount of people were able to go in. And from that point on, it's like anyone who did not get chosen to go in, they were taken out. They were done. And Ellie's like, why didn't I just let them go? And I was thinking the same thing too. Like, why don't you just let them go? And then Joel made the response where, and the logical military tactical point is that they took him out. If they took him out, there will be less infected to deal with, and there was already proof of that in the intro of episode 2, where the scientist lady, professor lady, mentioned, there's no cure, there's no vaccines. The only thing that's left is to annihilate Jakarta, bomb it before it's too late. For obvious reasons, it was too late. Same thing happened. There was crater marks around Boston in episode 2 that Tess mentioned that they tried to bomb the area to contain the infected, which it worked for a while, but in the end, it didn't. It just all hell broke loose. And then from that point, after Joel told her about that, it pans out to the past, roughly the beginning of the infected, when people weren't sure what was going on. People were being moved to the quarantine zone. You see this dress that you see that was in the ground. You see the lady who wears it. It's the same as the blanket. She was carrying a baby, that same blanket that was in the ground.
Bingo.
And then it slowly pans out to a home under the basement, and that's Bill. Bill's watching the surveillance. He's like, he's not going to be taken by the new government order. As soon as they leave, he gets out. He's wearing a mask, unsure whether this virus is airborne or not. And then he goes, gets on his truck, which is really cool because this truck is basically the same truck from the game where you get hooked up with a truck by Bill after, going through this whole gameplay ordeal with the infected to pick up a battery. This whole battery thing is like an issue for both the game and the show. And then you basically take that truck to go to Tommy. And so this is what this cool Easter egg you see. You see Bill driving the truck. And he gets on the boat. He turns on the gas, electric. After they shut it down, he goes to Home Depot. Basically he's being a survivalist, picking up every last food, any supplies, water, stuffs like that. And then he basically makes his own quarantine zone by fencing up the place, electricity, electric fence, and booby traps, holes where the infected would drop down, bombs where if they clipped one of the traps, it would explode. Which is pretty cool because you see that same kind of stuff's in the game, where you see a barricade around the town, traps around where if a zombie just steps on it, it would blow up. It's pretty cool. And there's a certain point, like not too long ago after he started doing that, Frank, he falls in one of the traps. He's under this deep hole. He mentioned that he was from, I think, Detroit, where that QZ zone, like QZ was taken out. That was no longer there anymore. It was probably by raiders or the infected, or it was just a fallout that happened. But he was in a group of 10, and he's just now in by himself. He was making his way to Boston because there was where Joel was. That was another quarantine zone. And Bill lets him up. He tests him if he's infected or not. He gives him food, a new set of clothing, and then they have this I guess this kind of somewhat weird, awkward, tender moment where Frank plays the piano. I forgot the song that's played. I'll probably have it on the on the video. And then Bill couldn't take it anymore, so he took over the piano, and he started singing and playing the piano himself as well, playing the same song. And then they get a little they get a little more tender in bed, and so on. And so then you see years pass by, because I think it was after 3 to 4 years, Bill and Frank have an argument. Frank wants to make the place look good, at least make it look the area that the mini QZ zone that Bill made looks at least nice. And so Bill listens and lets him do his thing, where like painting or some flowers to make everything look good, and then eventually, I don't know what's the timeline between, but it's in the same year where Tess and Joel come in, where it was like 3 to 4 years after it happened. So this is basically Joel still fresh from losing his daughter. But this might be also the time he might have that Tommy and Joel split apart, because he was no. It seemed like maybe he was no longer with Tommy, and so they have their lunch picnic kind of thing. Bill and Joel are like the same, paranoid, like distrust, like not easily trusting. As a Frank and Tess, they were both lenient. They're like trust each other. They were pretty open with each other. Walk away. They have their moment, and then later on, you kind of find out that as Tess and Joel leave, that Frank was the one that started off the whole code thing. The radios were like playing the 80s, the 70s, and so on. Like playing these types of songs meant like whether they were in trouble or they were good, whatnot. It pretty much explains, I believe, in episode 1, like roughly in middle to end, I think.
Jesus.
And so there was that, and then it pans out to a few more years where Bill and Frank have their moment. Frank was able to grow strawberries. There was like a tender moment where Bill laughs. I don't know if he's like I don't know if he cries, but he laughs eating strawberries, which is pretty crazy because in a world where all that crazy stuff is going on, it's probably difficult to get strawberries. And then there was another moment where Bill was fighting off raiders while they were trying to get inside of the fenced area. He manages to fend them off, but he does get shot. And there was a moment where it seemed like Bill was going to die. I was like, "Whoa, this is really different. Like, I don't know if I like this." And so he tells Frank, is like, "Hey, get Joel, call Joel. Joel's gonna take care of you." And it was that very moment where it seemed like Bill was going to die. But then it pans out 10 years later, where it's in their present day, 2023. Sadly, Frank is in his wheelchair. He has some kind of disease where he's being paralyzed. His motor skills are not working out. He's holding a paintbrush in a way he can only hold, but his coordination is going off, slightly off, and so. And then Bill picks him up, gives him his medicine, cuts his food for him, and then it turned out the next day that Frank wanted to make this day his last day.
Let me use that. I'm a pretty good
And
shot with that thing.
they had this discussion in their living room where
Well, we could both be armed. Cover each other.
Bill's gonna make this one last good day, where they were gonna go for a stroll. They're gonna go to the clothing store. I can't say that word. They're gonna get dressed. They're gonna have a nice dinner, and then Bill was in charge to crush the medicine, put it in a wine glass or wine bottle and wine glass, and then Frank would happily die in Bill's arms. They do that stuff. The only difference is that Bill crushes like fake medicine into his cup, something like that. Frank drinks it, but then he realized that Bill already crushed up the medicine and put it in the wine bottle, the second wine bottle they drink. And Frank said, like, why would you do that? Like, he's disappointed that he did that, but he understands that in the most romantic way that Bill's like, I'm old. what else can I do after like another who knows
Now listen,
how many years? And so
Bill
he
ain't
rather,
exactly the most
goes off
stable
with the
of
person he
individuals.
loves. And
So
so
when we get there,
they walk to
you
like
let me do the
basically
talking.
he takes
You
Frank to
understand?
their room and then they die there.
Understand?
You don't
You
see
gotta
their
be clear
bodies or
on this. You,
anything. And
you
then
don't take too kindly to strangers.
who knows how long this was because Joel and Ellie make it over there.
See that wire? Stay underneath it. Just
Joel
keep your head low and you'll be fine.
finds out where like some of the plants are like half dead, that something went wrong. Joel calls out for Bill and Frank, looks for them. Ellie ends up finding the letter where Bill writes
You hear
his
that?
last words in. He assumed that Joel would make it in because if anyone else did, they would probably die from
Wanna
one
see
of
what
his
we can
traps.
find.
And he like wrote down, and
Heart.
it's like
Don't worry. I got this.
it was like a little funny just because that's like sounds like Bill, and and then he mentions that he left all his truck, he left his weapons, that and he gave him a message basically. Bill and Joel is like they're both protectors. They know their job, what they need to do, and so he leaves his things for him to protect Tess. And that's when Ellie stopped before she even said her name, and Joel takes the letter away from Ellie and reads it himself and sees the word Tess. And then he walks out, crumbles the paper. It's just like the feeling of not again. Why must this happen again? He loses someone, and it's like losing his daughter, losing Tess, and then losing people that it seemed like for sure he considered them as friends, even though Joel and Bill didn't really see eye to eye as much. And so Joel and Ellie take their shower. They pack up most what they can in a truck, and they drive away. And then Ellie finds a cassette tape, puts it in, plays it, and it's the same song that Bill and Frank played in the piano. And then as they're driving away from the distance, you see the open window that Bill mentioned in the letter, that they left the window open so the house doesn't smell. And you just see in the camera view where the open window is as Joel and Ellie drives away. And that's pretty much the episode, that in a nutshell, the what happened on episode 3. I know a lot of people had problems with it. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was pretty sweet and tender. The way I'm describing it doesn't sound like it. It's just a more cut and dry version where I just explain all that. But I understand people were hoping to a gameplay version, like the adapted version where it shows some of the gameplay, them fighting off the infected, and at some point they'll be fighting a bloater, and that didn't happen. And I guess people haven't really put in their heads that it's an adaptation. Not everything that happened in the game is going to happen in the show. They will follow a lot of the plot, but some are going to be changed. Just like how episode 3, there's a different version of Bill that had a happy ending, and compared to the game version, Bill, Bill basically helps save Joel while he's like caught in one of his traps and hanging down, or hanging like roughly around the ceiling ish, while Ellie's trying to cut the rope out, and they almost get munched on and infected. They go for a battery so they can put it in a truck, and so it's a side of the town where Bill has not yet cleared out yet. They go in there, they didn't see the battery, they try to run away more because they're being chased, and they run to a bloater and decide to school a gym. They take out the bloater, and then they keep running away. They end up in a home where you see Frank hanged, and Bill cuts him down. He finds bite marks, and so he assumed that
What, you know this guy or something?
before he turned, he'd rather go out
Frank.
still human. And then they
Who the
find a
hell's
truck,
Frank?
the same truck in the show,
He was my
and the battery inside it. Bill's
idiot that would wear a
personality
shirt
in
like that.
in the game is somewhat similar to the show. Uh, doesn't trust people fully. He's more independent.
That
He's
bites.
more into himself, like
Here?
keeps things to himself, kind of thing. Way, but he still is caring because he still helps out Joel. And, you know, probably also because he owes him favors. You know,
Reckon he
so
didn't
he's
want to turn.
keeps his word pretty much,
Guess
and
not.
but he's still a bit
Well, fuck
screw
it.
loose in the head, and so the last moment, or at least Frank's last moment, is basically this letter here
Look what I
where
found.
it
It's got some
says,
juice
"Well,
in it.
Bill, I doubt you would ever find this note because you were
That's
too
my
scared
battery.
to ever make it to this part of
Look
town.
at this.
But for some reason you did. I want you to know I hated
Get
your
out.
guts. I grew tired of
Get
this
out.
shitty town
Jeez.
and of your and your ways attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that. That
Battery's
stupid battery
drained,
you
but
kept moaning about, I got it.
cells are
But I
alive.
guess you were right.
Meaning?
Trying to leave
You
this
push
town
it,
will
get
kill
it
me.
started, the alternator will
Still
recharge
better
the
than
battery.
spending another day with you.
Is that your
Good luck,
guess?
Frank.
Look, you wanted a plan B.
Where in the
This is
show's
as good as-
version, they had a moment of argument where it seemed like they were going to split
What you
apart,
thinking?
but then Bill became
You
understanding
driving me,
and he let
push.
Frank paint the home, the clothing store,
more of
and
my
put some
stuff.
flowers to make the quarantine zone that Bill made a good looking place.
So what? You just
And so
steal my shit and run off?
yeah, that's
Frank?
pretty much the difference between, aside from gameplay,
You
finding
should
out
probably search the
bloaters,
house.
and
I'm
where
sure
one
there's more
version
supplies.
Frank dies and the show's version
Let me know
gives
when you're ready to finish this thing. I'll give you a holler.
I guess somewhat a dark but also a happy ending for Bill and Frank, where they die together and as a married couple. I guess what do you guys think? Do you think the show's version gives do you agree with the show's version? Like Bill and Frank, they, you know, die off in their own terms, or do you better prefer the game's version where, you know, the Bill is a sad man, you know, has a sad life, but you know, he's still alive. At least for part one. Who knows afterwards, because you know, that's all you ever hear from Bill. But yeah, that's my take on it. As always, thank you guys for watching my video. If you enjoyed the video, sadly I'm I'm not sure if I'm gonna play any clips here, but it's really hard to, you know, because of getting copyrighted, but hopefully next time I'll figure out a way to do that. But anyways, if you like the video, it'll help me grow and I greatly appreciate it. As well as if you subscribe, I'll greatly appreciate you guys doing that and not miss any videos or streams. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.